So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. And good morning, everybody. It's Dan. Hope you're well today. So it is a Sunday. We are actually quite enjoying doing the podcast on a weekend. It's quite nice, actually. It just gets us a chance to reach a few more people who can't normally access them on a weekday. So that's really nice. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. My name's Dan Latto. I want to talk to you about business coaching. And before I want to talk about business coaching, the one thing that I actually want to do is change the header title. Because if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can't see this. But if you are watching it, there we go. Business Growth Show. That's exactly what it should be called. Welcome to a Business Growth Show. I had the wrong header on there. Anyway, welcome. Hope you're well. I hope your weekend's going well. We had a fabulous day yesterday. Went down to the beach. We had all these kites, all these hot air balloons. We had beach volleyball. We went to a beach bar. And it's really funny because it's really easy to forget just how lucky we are living in this amazing place overseas in Spain. It's very, very fortunate. But in today's session, I will talk about business coaching and really 4 reasons why you should have a business coach this year. And it's interesting because we've been doing business coaching now for a decade and a half, something like that. And specifically, the thing that's made the biggest difference for me in helping other people is me doing the neuro-linguistic programming. And that's not in order for me to stand on stage and be all happy clappy and you know, changing people's states in that way. But when I get on a one-on-one call and someone's going through something, or someone needs some advice, or someone needs some help in some way, the NLP really does come through to help with that. And that works really well. And what I find is that I use the NLP stuff every single day. I use it with my kids, I use it in negotiation, and I use it with business coaching clients as well. But when I look back at, let's say, over the last 6 months, because we're halfway through the year, so let's look at the last 6 months. When I look at my coaching clients and when I look at the types of conversations that we actually have, it's not necessarily about do this and then do that and then do the next thing. Because most people kind of know what we should be doing anyway. Yeah, there's a few technical things on the marketing that we don't really understand, and we can explain how that works and why you should do it and all the technical bits. But actually, there's a bigger thing going on here. And when I look back at the last 6 months, one of the things I realise is that when I'm speaking to coaching clients, they don't have anybody else to speak to. They can't speak to their partner because their partner's not interested, or they're not listening, or they just don't understand it. They can't speak to their friends down the pub. Not that people go to the pub that often these days because we're all closing down. But they can't speak to their friends because their friends are also not interested and they also don't understand it. And also, some of the stuff that we talk about is quite personal. It's stuff that happened in their past. Stuff that happened when they were 8 or 9 years old and the dad shouted at them. Stuff that comes up in our coaching calls. And we're like, oh my God, where did that come from? I'm like, okay, let's just investigate that and we can clear that off and make some space for new good stuff to enter into the mind, so that you're no longer at the behest of that stuff that's been stopping you right now. And so really it's about sanity. It's about being able to have conversations with somebody else external to you that actually doesn't judge. And when I say I don't judge, I just want to clarify that, because actually we do judge. We judge like crazy. And in fact, my job in 2024 is to judge more. But it's not judging about what's happened to you. It's really about judging the situation and judging your attitude to the stuff that's happened, or the stuff that you want to happen, and then coming up with a plan that will enable you to use it to move you forward in a powerful way. And so really that's how we do it. And so when we talk about sanity, the fact that most people, most business owners have not got somebody external to speak to speaks volumes in the level of their success. And one of the things that we find is when they come on board, they get all this stuff lined up. And because they can just go blah, 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 and speak it all out, we get a solution for them. And I'm laughing because I'm just thinking, when we go for the subtitles later, what are the subtitles going to put for blah, blah, blah? Quite interesting. So getting that level of sanity back in a person's life is really important. And so that's one of the first things that they get. And then the second thing, of course, is that it's really lonely at the top. And it kind of ties into the sanity thing, because you've got no one to speak to. You've got no sounding board. Like, just being able to speak to someone and go, Dan, I've got this problem and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, oh, Dan, I actually know what the answer is, right? I don't even have to do anything. Obviously, I take credit for it. But sometimes I don't even need to do anything. Or sometimes I can just ask a few challenging questions and they can work their way to the answer, but they couldn't get to the answer without those few challenging questions. And so some of the questions are, and by the way, in my coaching and mentoring, it's different than normal people would do it, because normal people go, yes, and how do you feel about that? Like, I don't give a shit how you feel about that. I'm like, what do you want the solution to look like? Where are you right now? And what are the steps that are going to get you there? And what's preventing you from implementing those steps? And why have you not done it already? And then people go, oh, God, yeah, it's so obvious now. This is where I want to get to. This is where I am now. And when I work back from where I want to get to, I need to have this in place and this in place. And when, in order to get this in place, I have to do these things. And in order to do these things, I have to do this thing. And it's like, so we work back from where they actually want to be, from where to where they are now. And that will produce all the steps that are needed. And actually that leads me on to the next point, which is the answers are so obvious when you discuss them. And this is really the problem, is you've got no one to discuss them with. Nobody who's actually listening, who's intently listening to what you're saying. And there's two ways of listening to what people are saying. And this sounds a bit confusing, right? Or it sounds like, not confusing, but it sounds like a bit weird. The first way of listening to what someone's saying is just to listen, right? Is to listen to the context, to the situation that they're in, to the problem that they've got. And the second way of listening is to listen to the actual words that a person is using. So I'll give you an example. I watched a program, and it was a guy, and he was a hoarder, and the cleaning company comes in, and it was like one of these, where they clean up hoarding houses, right? And they came in, and they're trying to go through all his stuff, and trying to bag it, and he's got newspaper articles from like 1989, and he's worried he might need that at some point, so he keeps hold of it, right? And it is a mental health issue, really, I think. But one of the things that really struck me was they ordered the skip, and they had everything in big black bags, and then they were throwing everything into his skip. And what he said was, I feel like you're throwing my life away. And what was really interesting was that he got into this situation when he lost a high-powered job and couldn't get another job, right? So he had this, what we call a significant emotional event. He had this thing, and his way of dealing with this significant emotional event was holding on to his past, because that's who he thinks he is. And if they throw it all away, he doesn't know who he is anymore. Really interesting. We had a psychologist doing a program, and he just didn't have a bloody clue, so I don't trust psychologists. NLP every time for me. And it was so obvious that he was clinging on to the person that he felt he was, that was contained in these black bags. And when they're taking these black bags and throwing them into the skip, he said, I feel like you are throwing my life away, because he didn't know what was coming after. And actually, the psychologist should have sat down with him and said, okay, let's get some goals set. What do you want life to look like 12 months from now? Where do you want to be 12 months from now? And it's not, I want a Ferrari and a yacht. It's, I want a part-time job in McDonald's, let's just say, right? And it's like, okay, brilliant. That's a great first step. Wonderful for the next 12 months. You've been in this situation for 15 years. That's a nice, easy first step. We don't want to get you to the end goal just yet. We want you to build and grow as you're going through. So we just want you to do the next easy step. What would that be? Obviously, getting his house cleared up would be good, because clearing up his house is clearing up your mental health as well, to some extent. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed right now, like my desk right now is a complete and utter mess. And I'm also feeling overwhelmed right now because we've got so much stuff going on. And actually, one of the easy things that you can do is simply to go and tidy up your desk. And you're like, Dan, what sort of advice is that? Trust me on this. When you go and do that, you're tidying up your brain and you're reorganizing and reshifting. And then you go back and you work out your numbers on your spreadsheet, and you start looking at your spreadsheet, start looking at your bank account every day. And then you start creating a to-do list of all the things that you want to do that are in alignment to the goals that you want to do as well, right? So your goals will determine the direction you're going to go in, and the to-do list is all the things that will get you to the destination at the end, right? And you don't want the 15-year-old goal within 1 year. You want to go through the journey of self-discovery and growth. Too many people try and kind of bypass that, and that's where they get stuck, really. But it's really interesting looking at this guy with, he's throwing his life away, and he had very little mental health support. And when you discuss them, the answers are really, really obvious, but you have to be able to discuss them with a person who's capable of doing the second type of listening. Not just listening, blah, 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 yeah. It's like listening to the words that people say, because people will tell you exactly what's going on through the choice of words that they use in the language that they're using to express what's going on in their head. Because language is such a messy concept. I remember being at a property event, and I was trying to explain this example, and the guy that ran the property event, he came back in, and I said, let me give you an example. Let me describe the word love. And he was like, he was all flustered, right? Because how do you describe the word love? Like, how do you get this internal feeling and then explain that with words? Like, this is just this thing, and yet you're trying to describe this amazing thing with very clumsy words. And so you have this internal representation, you're trying to explain it using very clumsy language to get an external representation to other people. Once we get telepathy going, like possibly wars might stop around the world, because it's so easy to misconstrue language, because language is such a clumsy construct. But the clues are in the words that we use. And so when you're speaking to your spouse or your kids or your parents or your siblings or your customers, listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth and listen to the words that are coming out of their mouths as well. Because the answers are all there. And through the use of language, you have all this extra stuff bubbling up from the unconsciousness, right? When you have all this stuff bubbling up from the unconsciousness, that's where the answers lie to solve your problems. Because what happens is, in order to solve the problem, the level of thinking has to be greater than the level of thinking that caused the problem in the first place. Say that again. The level of thinking to solve a problem has to be greater than the level of thinking that caused the problem in the first place. And sometimes we go to a logical place to try and solve this illogical problem. Or it might be a logical problem, it might be an illogical problem. Oftentimes it's an illogical problem, and it's to do with how you're thinking about things, right? I need to make some more money. So you're trying to think about it from a logical point of view, and actually you need the unconscious stuff bubbling up, the illogical, the emotional, all this stuff that comes up from your unconscious mind that's trying to express itself but can't, because you're just relying on being logical all the time. Like, some of that might not make sense to you, but for other people going, oh my gosh, I totally get that. So the level of thinking to solve the problem has to be greater than the level of thinking that created the problem in the first place. And we do that through discussions. And I might even say, how do you feel about that? Not because I give a shit about how you feel about it. I don't care about how you feel about that. My business is burning down. I'm going to go, I'm in the shit. I feel dreadful. Right? How do you feel about that? Like, I don't care how you feel about that. I already know how you feel about that. You feel dreadful. But the idea is to get a person talking, because through the talking, all this unconscious stuff, all the answers to solve a problem that was created at a conscious level, all the answers to solve that problem are coming out of your unconscious mind. And so that's why we want to get into discussions with this. And like I say, for some people, this will be like, I have no idea what Dan's on about. And then for other people, we're going, oh my gosh, this is so what I need. And I totally get that. And if you're not there yet, it's totally fine. We're all where we are, and you're exactly where you need to be, right? And then the final reason why you need a business coach is to get some quick wins and accountability. And these are two separate things, but I ran out of little boxes here on the side, so I thought I'll stick them in the same one. So let me deal with quick wins. There's a video of a guy, and he's very, very drunk. And he's trying to get up an escalator, and he's trying to get up this escalator like crazy, right? The only problem is, he's so drunk, he doesn't realise the escalator is going down. And he's at the bottom trying to climb this escalator, and he's working really hard climbing this escalator. But because the escalator's going down, he's going against the grain, and he's not getting anywhere. And then somebody else, who was laughing at him, just comes up and says, come here, mate, moves him 2 feet to the left, which is where the escalator that's going up, puts him on it, and he goes straight to the top. That's a quick win. And sometimes what happens is you're so stuck within the problem as a business owner, and you've got no one to speak to, and you're feeling over pressure, and you've got payday coming up, and your staff to pay, and all these problems that we have as business owners. You're so stuck within the problem. But actually, it just needs someone to move you 2 feet to the left, and off you go, straight to the top. And so they're the quick wins. And that can be as simple as, like they post on Facebook, and then they post on Instagram, and then they post on LinkedIn, and then they post on Twitter, and then they post on, Pinterest. TikTok, and all it takes is to go, why don't you just use Content Planner, which is our digital marketing scheduling software. It's £67 a month, I think. Why don't you just use Content Planner and distribute all of those all at the same time? Or it might be they go live on Facebook, and I'm like, well, why are you not going live on Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube all at the same time, and TikTok as well, I think, all at the same time? Why not do that? Because they don't know. And it's like, well, here's the link. Click on that, sign up for it. That'll get you live on everything. Like, they're two really easy examples of quick wins you just might not realise. It always reminds me of the meme where it's a guy and he's shooting bows and arrows, and there's a guy next to him with a machine gun, and the first guy goes, I haven't got time to look at that. Can't you see I'm busy? And he's shooting all his arrows. And the guy's sat there with a machine gun. And it's like, that's a quick win. These are the quick wins, but because you're so in it and so dealing with it all the time, you don't have time, or you don't have the emotional capacity or the logistic capacity mentally to be able to look at something else that might actually accelerate your business. That's why we're here. One of the really cool things for us is because we've got so many clients on a digital marketing front in all these different industries, we can look at what you're doing and go, oh, that's similar to this industry or similar to this client. Why not just do what they're doing, implement it, bang, off it goes straight to the top. And so that's why getting a coach will allow you to get some quick wins. And then just finally on this, on the accountability side, one of our clients, who's a relatively recent client in the last 4 or 5 months, I'd say, and we helped give him some time management training and showed him how to implement it, and he implemented it really well. He had some things that he could improve upon, and so we're working on those, and he's continually improving on it, okay? But he's not only getting accountability from me, and not only is he able to ask all these open-ended questions. Oh, Dan, just another question I've got for you. What about this? And he gets the answer. But also, because of the time management stuff, he's also now getting self-accountability. So what happens is, because he's now getting self-accountability because of the time management training that we gave him, and ongoing discussions on how to best make that more efficient, our coaching sessions are getting much more top level and much more abstract. Because he's now self-accountable, he doesn't need to ask me the accountability questions because he's already self-accountable, which means our precious time in coaching is dealt with the much bigger picture type of stuff. Anyway, I hope you find that useful. I quite enjoyed that this morning. I hope you did as well. And we'll catch up with you on the next one. My name's Dan Latto. Have a wicked day today. Take care. Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.